Hello everyone, thank you for joining. Today's session is a mix of yoga nidra and breath work, and breath is what we're going to talk about today. I'll wait for Anchal to join. I think she's there. Okay, Anchal, I need your joining request. I can see you there. So in the meantime, I'll just create some context around what this session will be about. I'll give an example, like, for any health concern that we have or we are going through, generally our primary mode of action is to look for a dietary solution, or the solution or the solution that we seek is maybe through exercising or through lifestyle changes, which are good, which are much required. But if we have to even go to the root of what is it that regulates all the internal functionality, and that makes all these other factors that you think of, whether it be foods, whether it be lifestyle changes, or whether it be exercise, what is it that binds all of it together to bring about holistic changes in the body in a way that it impacts your mind? Through the mind, it creates certain hormonal changes within, and this is where you start to bring about changes in your chemistry, and that changes everything. How do we understand breath? How do we understand what is the technique that we can use to bring about relaxation in the body? And that's where yoga nidra comes into the practice, and how yoga nidra and breath are connected is what we are going to discuss today. So I'll let Anchal in, and then we'll start the session. Just give me a second, guys. I think Anchal should be there. Hi, Anchal. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, great. Yeah,
I'm
good.
just gonna come a
Thank you so
bit closer.
much. Yeah, no problem. So thank you so much for being here again and helping us understand little more depths of yoga, and more on the breath work and yoga nidra side. So this is
My
what we are
pleasure.
going to talk about today. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anchal, I think before we start, I would really want to start the context, and please feel free to join in. I mean, we'll try to
Can,
keep it a little interactive.
can I
Yeah.
request that we start with a mantra just to
Oh
like
yes, please. Definitely.
elevate the
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
because
Sure.
we're all coming back from being in different roles. I just want everyone here
Yes.
who's watching to just attune into the self almost. So we're gonna
Definitely.
close our eyes. Everybody's gonna close their eyes and just push the shoulders back. Allow the chest to raise a bit. Push the neck back. And take a deep inhalation and exhale very slowly. Again, inhale deeply, filling 3/4 of the corners of the lungs, and exhale slowly. Inhale deeply and exhale slowly. We're just going to begin with a small mantra. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejas Vinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bowing the forehead, salutations to the forefathers of yoga who've got us this knowledge. Thank you for allowing that to happen.
Thank you, Anshul. It was really amazing. I mean, it brings me also back into the moment, and few more
Yeah,
ideas coming in.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
Anshul, I'll start with where we two join together in terms of our understanding, and we'll take it forward from there.
Yeah,
So this is one thing that I generally, in my dietary practice also, I keep talking a lot about, that we've given foods and lifestyle and exercise so much of an importance that we think that if you have to heal naturally, these are the three major ways that you can start to bring about changes in the body for positive changes,
yeah,
whether it is for health conditions or whatever. So but after studying yoga, what I realized was that these are important areas, but these important areas are are integrated with breath. Somewhere breath has a role to play when it comes to metabolizing foods, whether it is about bringing about those changes, whether it is about exercise. What is going on in has a very strong interconnection with how your breath is going in. So this is what I understood as a part of my practice, and then I just tried to go a little deeper into understanding what the science is. And it just clicked to me one fine day that if we look at a newborn baby, the very first food of a newborn baby is breath. Then he or she is more on liquids for a certain time, and then he or she moves on to the solids, right? So does that give us a clue that how important breath is, that the very first thing as you enter the world is your experience with the breath, which is there with you from day one till
Mhm.
last day, right? You can
Yeah.
be without water for a certain time, without foods for a certain time. So if foods, if we are off foods for a certain time and still our body is functioning, I strongly believe that something that's a part of us every single moment, without which we cannot survive for even a few minutes. What kind of a role it may be playing when it comes to our biology, when it comes to our psychology, chemistry? I
Mhm.
mean, does it have any role to play when it comes to how the body functions from inside, and ultimately how stressed we are today, the kind of health conditions that we are experiencing today? So, this is what I would just want to and try to join all of these factors today.
Yeah.
But I'll, pass it on to you first. Just very quickly help us understand breath and yoga nidra, because these are two different topics, but how are we going to connect all of
Yeah.
the two of them?
So very easily, to breathe means to live and to live means to breathe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in the Pradipika. Like it all starts with that. From the moment we, come into the world till the moment we die, there's only one thing that is constant, right? But when
Mm-hmm.
this element leaves us, we're gone, right? At least we're dead
Yeah.
in this plane. So it's it's so amazing that right now, whatever research that is happening in the West is discovering all of this that's already happened in the ancient sciences. So
Yeah.
all these neuroscientists are now saying that the most important thing everybody needs to do is breath work. Okay. The brain only needs two things, glucose and oxygen. Yeah. And the way
Yeah.
we can get oxygen is yes, through exercise, but for better quality breath, better quality oxygen, you need to do breathing exercises. In
Mm-hmm.
very many hospitals in the West, where there are trauma patients, we now have yoga teachers or teachers who are trained to go and teach them breath work. Even
Mm-hmm.
with people who have mental diseases, with gut diseases, this is happening. So why is it that in India, or rather this part of the land, which is where breathwork comes from, there's absolutely no
Right.
awareness? Yeah,
Exactly.
we're all
That's a big
we're all
question. Yes.
we're all going to the gym, we're all
Yeah.
going and we're doing all these. We're eating healthy. We're always researching what's the best food to eat right now. How important is to intermittent fast, but is that going to be permanent? Are you creating that permanent change that's going to last forever? Or you're going to follow
Mm-hmm.
this diet for 10 days and then leave it and then get back to the problem? So, all of this is a question mark. And the only
Mm-hmm.
answer to all of this is honestly the breath. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
very briefly, I'm going to give you the whole physical aspect of it is that we take a deep breath in. We have these two triangular sacs that are running along the top portion of the body. And
Mm-hmm.
in this, we have branches like small trees, right? Now,
Yeah.
what's happened in the modern day world? You and I were never taught in school how to breathe right. So we were
Exactly.
breathing in through the nose, and we were only using, I think maybe until we were 18, we were using probably our entire lung capacity because we were intuitively working. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, because of the stresses of modern day living, because of bad posture, because of diseases, because of
Mm-hmm.
hormones, because of diet, we stopped using the entire lung capacity. Now, I'll just give you a very real world example, right?
Yeah.
If you do not take oxygen into the latter half of your lungs, the latter half of your lungs becomes stored with carbon dioxide that's been there for years. Yeah. And the lung
Yeah.
capacity is such that it's so porous and it's like, like it's just becomes like a seat for diseases. And
Mm-hmm.
slowly we start brewing all these diseases in the body. Not only
Mm-hmm.
we cannot pass the oxygen to the blood, but carbon dioxide that's been lying there still, is been there
Mm-hmm.
forever, is not coming out of us. And what
Mm-hmm.
happens then? We're not using the diaphragm, which is probably the most important organ in the body. When
Yeah.
you're not using the diaphragm, you are not activating your pineal gland. Yeah. Like
Mm-hmm.
going back, just stepping back a bit. no oxygen, not enough good quality oxygen. So the brain is starting to change all its patterns. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say you have at the age of 16, you had 100% focus. When you were reading your book, you were reading your book. The thoughts were very less. But now what happens is as the brain starts functioning lesser, like more effectively, you're reading a book, you just get distracted. You can't read that book, anymore. Your cognitive function gets changed. Then the
Yeah.
brain is directly connected to the gut. The gut starts, getting impaired. The organs stop working. There's a lot of science behind this, which I can talk
Yeah.
about later. But the most
Yeah.
important thing to understand is the brain. The nervous system and the brain are one, right? And
Yeah.
if we are not working on that organically through our breath, then everything else is falling apart. Now, number
Yeah.
two, I want to talk a bit about how posture is so important. When we're sitting, I mean, more than 99.9% of people over here are probably slouching through the day,
Yeah.
and you're probably driving and your muscles are stiff. Now there's research that's come out saying that the C3, C5, and the C6, which are three cranial nerves that pass, they're called the phuretic nerves. They're directly connected to the diaphragm. So
Okay.
if you're sitting in bad posture, then the diaphragm cannot get engaged.
And
And if the
consciously also, if you realize, like, if you sit like this and
yeah,
consciously, if I try doing it,
you
even
can't
if I
breathe
try hard,
properly.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That
you
doesn't go
can't
in,
breathe.
right?
Yeah, you can't breathe
Yeah.
properly. So the C3, C5, C6 is directly connected to the diaphragm.
Yeah.
And if you can't use the diaphragm, then 100% you're not breathing well. And we
Yeah.
don't realize that over the years, a host of diseases start creeping on us. So PCOS or thyroid or heart, you know, artery sclerosis doesn't happen in a single day. It takes
I agree.
a lot of, so 3 months is the time period that we use to manifest disease. So
Yeah.
all of these cranial nerves, and if the pineal gland is not active, then we're out there just putting ourselves out there, saying ki, come, like I'm just putting myself and I'm not going to be at ease. Now, on the other hand, there's research now that's going on that's saying that the gut and the brain, and this has been going on for very many years, the gut and the brain are directly connected, right? And
Yeah.
if we're not using the diaphragm, and if we're not engaging that full purna yogic breath, as we call it in yoga, then the organs that are surrounding the the entire spinal column, they start overworking. It's like they're
Okay.
signaling to the body that, hey, there's a fire here.
So
You
is
need
it
to
is it
run.
something like a stress response
Yeah.
getting
So
created
the
there?
so
So
the
sympathetic mode is
autonomous,
getting on.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The autonomous nervous system goes into SNS, right? It's like there's stress over here. Please put cortisol in the system. So
Yeah.
basically, the blood flow is actually always on the gut. Okay. But
Yeah.
when the SNS is engaged, all the blood rushes into the muscles because the body
Muscles,
is being
exactly.
told, run,
Yeah.
and when the body is being told, run, then all, and why does the eyes, why do you think your eye vision starts to decrease? So there's research now as well. So your eyes start dilating because they're like, oh, there's threat in front of us. So we need to start running.
Yeah. Can I just
So,
add on one fact
yeah,
here? Like, I
yeah.
just came across this since we're talking about the eyes. A lot of people don't have eyes, which is a weak eyesight, but they have this blurry vision. I mean, sometimes it happens that it's related to what you're just saying.
It's related to
But
the
a very,
central nervous system. Yeah.
yeah, so, and a very interesting fact in one of the books that I came across, which really clicked me, was if you have a blurry vision, even if your eyesight is good, okay, most of the times why it happens is that for whatever reason it's happening, like, SNS is on, but if you get it tested, modern science does not have an answer for that. I mean, there is no medication or there is no therapy as such that can improve upon that blurry vision. It is
Because
only, yeah, it is only the good breathing and your pranic power which fuels your eyes. So,
yeah,
and pranic power is directly related to your breath.
yeah. So
So if
as
you
we
really want to
know,
work on your
yeah.
vision, it's about working on your breath. And so that's what the correlation that I'm trying to make here.
So, like, I mean, there's so much to talk, Dipti. Like, you would
Yeah.
probably understand it, but
Yes.
when, like, now in elite athletes in the US and
Mm-hmm.
Canada, are being told to do eye exercises like the yogis do. So there's
Okay.
a whole new modality, there's a whole new movement that's been brewing up where they're teaching Sukshma Vyayam, they're teaching eye
Hmm.
exercises. They're actually using this, like, the fingers that we use in yoga to
Yeah.
train themselves because they've realized that these are connected to parts of the brain that need to be
Yeah.
activated, which start dulling down because of stress. So
I'll
going
just add
back,
on
yeah,
one more
yeah,
thing. Sorry, I'm cutting you there, but I'm just trying to add on whatever I know from the dietary perspective. So, as a part of my macrobiotic studies, so there is a separate branch which specifically only deals with the study of eyes. It's called iridology or something. I guess it's a
oh
known field,
really?
but in macrobiotics, we
Wow.
specifically study everything about it, and it's such a detailed study. Like you literally get into those pupils, and there are those
The
sections there,
new
and you each section has a connection with each. So how how the nerves are connected from one part of the body and it's connected to the brain, and how senses are perceiving it. It's a complete science in itself, and
Yeah.
that specific modality.
So in general, if you do eye exercises, you can lower your blood pressure. Did you know that? It's so,
No, I did not know that. Yeah,
yeah, you
but
can.
that's interesting.
And
That's very
and
interesting.
and 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 now, what's happening is, let me step back and go back to the
Hmm.
sympathetic nervous system. So what's happened in modern day age is when the SNS is active and we know that we're stressed, and you know normally the PNS comes to rescue and says that,
Hmm.
hey, there's a fire and you've dealt with the fire. Okay, let's go back and
Hmm.
eat our donut. But it
Hmm.
doesn't happen anymore. So the SNS remains high. So your muscles are overworking, which is why
Still,
we have
yeah.
pain in the body. Like, now how
Hmm.
many people have like random pain in the neck, random pain in their back,
Yeah.
random injuries, right? This
Yeah.
is all a part of the SNS. The PNS has stopped being, stopped like organically switching on and off. And the one
Hmm.
of the best ways to do it is the breath work. Yes, you can
Okay.
do it in exercise, you can do
Hmm.
it in eating right, but the way you would do it in breath work and the way you would be doing it in yoga nidra is you're going to be kind of resetting it from within.
Hmm.
So
So it's
even
like
like,
relaxation setting in with breath work, right? And
yeah,
which
so you're
is the
kind of,
key where all healing
yeah.
happens.
So it's like, the regulator of a fan. So right now we are on 5, but we should
Hmm.
actually have been on 1. So we have
Hmm.
to come back to 1. So most of like the research in the US on neuroscience is all about this now, is all about breath work, is all about eye
Yeah.
exercises.
True.
And it was so interesting because last week I had a session with 85 doctors in Cooper Hospital, and I
Wow.
taught them Sukshma Vyayam, and I taught them eye exercises. And the doctor who helped me do this, or rather who liaisoned with me, she told
Hmm.
me that we just don't have money to fund this research. We don't have time.
Hmm.
We have too many trauma patients, so we need people like you to do this. And the second thing she told me, which was really interesting, is that in Pune they did a research on someone doing breath work and someone who was doing
Okay.
yoga asana, and
Hmm.
during that they put these, like, these sort of contraptions everywhere to understand the heart rate and understand where the
Okay.
brain was, and they found
Hmm.
that the brain was emitting delta waves and theta
Okay.
waves, which are higher frequencies, and the
Yeah.
body was completely in rest. So, what
Wow.
she said was that, and I was like, I was like quite very upset. I was like, are you saying my muscles are not engaged in Trikonasana? She said, do you really
Hmm.
care about that? Are you here for that?
No, I guess
She's
that's
like, no, but
that's where, sorry, I'm cutting you there, but I think there's another
yeah,
point there that when it is about exercise, we generally relate it to muscles, but how I believe Hatha Yoga differentiates a Vinyasa class or a Power Yoga class or maybe a Yin class is even if you're in a posture, but you're still completely relaxed. And that's what the definition of asana is, right? Sthiram
yeah,
Sukham Asana.
you're right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
even if it is a
So,
triangle pose or if whatever, but
yeah.
your muscles are not engaged and completely in a state of relaxation.
So the key is that modern research is speaking the same language. It's
Yeah.
saying, do this breath work, do this yoga, because when you enter that state of relaxation, your gut is going to be absolutely great. Your heart is going to be absolutely
Right.
great. Your muscles are going to be great. Your brain is going to be great. Don't you think every child should be doing this? I've been talking to a friend's mother who is a psychiatrist, and she said the kind of diseases, the spectrum disorders at the age between 12 and 18 has significantly gone up.
Yeah.
And the reason is because between 12 and 18, you're using the part of the brain, you're not using the mid part of the brain, you're using the top part of the brain, prefrontal cortex, which means you're not thinking about the long-term result of your action, right? So more
Okay.
and more of the kids, because of the stress and the social media and the amount of stress and pressure they are activating the SNS so much that their brain is getting impaired. And
That's very interesting,
and
Anchal. And
yeah,
I believe that we are going to talk about this in our upcoming
yeah,
workshop
we
also. I mean,
we
this
are
is a very
we are
important
we are.
concept, I guess.
So, this is something I think we shouldn't be using not only for the adults, but we actually need to start training teenagers. We need to
Yeah.
give this back to
And
them.
I guess it's more important because lockdown has actually created so much of exposure and screen time. It's all eyes are always seeing the moving pictures. That
Right,
still vision is not there at all. I mean, they
right.
want something moving all the time.
Like Tratak, for example, is a game changer, but how many of us do it,
Yeah,
So I've
true.
recently started doing Tratak every day. And it's important actually now to sort of, meld modern science and Eastern sciences. So because when
Yes,
I
that's
talk
the
in my
time.
courses, I always say that, hey, we need to pick up this concept that has been brewing called atomic habits. So we need to understand that if you want to
Yes.
exercise better or you want to do breath work every single day, and I know it's boring. I know breath work for each and every single person who's watching is going to say, this is so boring. But isn't it better than having a pill after 10
And I think
years?
it's not, I would not say it's boring. It's that initially because we are so fond of movement and so fond of
Yeah,
our senses want to be engaged. Initially, it seems like you form a new
it's
habit. It's
too
like that. Like
different.
once,
It's too different.
yeah.
Yeah.
But once you
And
get into that habit and you experience that stillness, is
yeah.
where you actually get hooked to it.
Yeah, which is why we try to we really motivate our participants to do it for a really long time. And I say, build
Yeah.
an atomic habit. Don't drop the atomic habit. Drop me a smiley after you're done. It's to
Mhm.
motivate them. And I
Yeah.
have seen over the last year, and this was a very organic course that I came up with. A lot of people dropped asthma, blood pressure, reversed
Wow.
gut inflammation, and it's still a challenge. I'm not going to say that
Hmm.
everything is perfect. They still call me up and they say, this that I'm having this problem, and I'm like, are you not doing the breath work? And they're like, yeah, sometimes I don't. I'm traveling. I'm doing this. I'm like, drop. Do any habit in the world you can drop, but don't drop breath work. Do it
Anshul, I'm sorry I'm
as soon
cutting
as,
you
yeah,
here,
yeah,
but I would
yeah,
really want to connect dots with one of the very important topic that I generally talk about in my dietary sessions, and this is the baseline of what I do. So we're just talking about how if your diaphragm is not functioning fine, which is an attribute of your lungs and breathing, you end up accumulating a lot of carbon dioxide and oxide in
yeah,
your middle
yeah,
area, right?
body,
Now,
yeah,
and in my practice, dietary practice, I talk a lot about your body being acidic or alkaline. Okay.
yeah,
Now, how this concept relates to it is that when you have a lot of carbon in the body, ultimately it's carbonic acid that you're holding,
carbonic
right?
acid,
And
yes,
carbonic acid is 70% of
acidic,
toxin in the body,
right,
acidic.
right,
So which means even if you're consuming good amount of alkaline foods, and if you have 70% of carbonic acid in your stomach, you're not alkaline. So those
yes,
good foods are also not making you good. This is
right,
where the connect, I think, happens when it comes to biology and
yeah,
breath and biology coming together.
yeah,
So I mean, again, this is one thing that I think I would really want to focus upon and talk about is
yeah.
that whether it is your exercise, whether it is your foods, whether anything that you want to do for your health, everything is incomplete without breath work. For
So,
the simple concept that
s-
carbonic acid is going to
so
make you diseased.
can I tell you guys, if you want to lose weight, yeah, everybody wants to lose weight, right? In India,
Hmm.
the breath is the best way to lose the weight. It's
Yeah.
the best way. Even when you're exercising, it's not the exercise, but it's your exhalations that is making you lose weight. Yeah, you detoxify with urination and sweat, but 80% of the weight loss is lost with the
I
breath.
agree.
Yeah.
And
And
the
I've
reason, if I have to add on, it's carbonic acid coming out
it's
through your
exactly.
breath.
So you have the lungs, and it's like an inverted tree with a lot of branches, and the branches are filled with oxygen. And at the
Hmm.
base is the diaphragm, and you have all these blood vessels that are coming in, waiting to
Mm-hmm.
take that oxygen and give back carbon dioxide. But if you're not using your entire breath, like if you're not detoxifying the carbon dioxide that's stored, how will that oxygen go in? How will that carbon dioxide go out? So you're creating an environment of acidity in the body. Yeah. How much ever iron you eat, iron is not going to go
Yeah.
up, because
Yes.
you're not oxygenating your blood,
Exactly.
right? Then all the organs are going to be like, hey, where's my oxygen? How do I work? Right? So there is so much more to the breath than just feeling relaxed. It's actually a physical body, it's actually a weight. You may have noticed that most yogis like me do a very slow practice but are naturally slim. Why is that? Because we
Yeah.
focus a lot on regulated inhalations and exhalations. And more than the inhalation, the exhalation is even more important. It has to be twice that, because we want to remove the carbon dioxide to take in oxygen. So it's 1:2. I want to take in oxygen, but if the house is full of carbon dioxide, how will I take in oxygen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. The brain is an oxygen hog. It requires 25% of your oxygen. Now, if you're not giving the brain oxygen, then the brain is going to change its functions. It's going to become
Yeah.
sleepy. It's going to become dull. It's going to be like sluggish. So there is so much to the breath that, one even one workshop that we're doing is probably going
Yeah.
to be very less
It's game
to sort of,
changer. It's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
and just to add on, Anshul here, again coming from macrobiotics, I'll just pick up instances from there. Even if it is a food modality there for years and it's a very ancient practice and it talks everything about foods, still I was really amazed when I came to know, as a part of my studies, of course, that so we are talking of carbonic acid being out of your body, right? So
yeah,
as a part of my studies, and awareness that came was, uh, you have to push out toxins out of your body, whether it is liquid toxins or solid toxins or gaseous toxins. That's the key to where the
yeah,
system will build up. It's nothing to do with foods directly. It's nothing to do with exercise directly.
right,
Ultimately, it's about these three sources are going to
yeah,
create environment where you're losing either, solid, liquid, or gaseous wastes. That is the
yeah,
key.
yeah,
When it comes to losing these toxins, our major focus is on colon and
yeah,
kidneys. Okay,
yeah,
and then we think that if we do not have constipation and if we are eliminating well, say through our kidneys are if our kidneys are working fine, then we are sorted. And it was such an awareness. It's only 25% of toxins coming out of your colon and your
colon,
kidneys. That too, if you are in a very good state of health where
right,
you're not holding any, and you're not holding any feces inside, or
yeah, yeah,
your kidney system is fine, which is not
yeah,
the case for most of the people. So just imagine that even if you're not constipated, it's just 20% of toxin that is coming out of you. I mean, I
yeah,
would even decrease that 5% because 75% comes out of your breath.
yeah,
And it was an event, like, a food modality talking about breath, which was amazing,
yeah, yeah.
learning.
So, yeah, so in a sense, like, we say the same thing, that when you actually, the first few days when people are shocked by this practice, they don't understand what's going on. And then, I took 12 years to understand what it is.
Yeah.
I think I was a very slow learner. In fact, most of my students are really quick. They like really caught on to it. They're
Hmm.
doing it religiously and seeing such a benefit. I know so many of my students who had zero willpower to lose
Hmm.
weight, a body full of diseases. And I have two examples right in front of me who are, so I don't like to handhold people. So I don't want them to come to me and make me a crutch and, lose weight. I told
Yeah.
them, I'm going to make you independently do it. You just do
Hmm.
breath work. So you do breath work with me. And at the end of my session, I say, hey, go do 13 Surya Namaskars and then tell me
Hmm.
you did it. And they're doing it. And they're like,
Hmm.
they're so happy because they're like, I lost weight and I've been struggling to lose weight for 12
So
years.
there's a science behind how you structure your breath and your exercise practice, right?
No, my point being the breath is hugely interrelated to your willpower. You
Oh yeah,
know,
that's
it
also another
is
point. Yeah.
hugely, pranic energy is hugely interrelated to how
Yeah.
far you want to go in your life, how
Yeah.
focused you are. So if you look at a clock and you're staring at the ticks, okay, right,
Hmm.
this very moment, you will realize when I tell and I instruct you, hey, Dipti, can you focus
Mm-hmm.
on these clock ticks? Close your eyes and just listen to the ticking sound. What is
Mm-hmm.
happening is the science behind it is that automatically your breath either slows down or your
Mm-hmm.
breathing stops. What does that mean? When we're in concentration, then there is no breath. Yeah. But most
Yeah.
of us are breathing so heavily. We're only meant to breathe like 17,000 times a day. But we're breathing so fast because when you're angry or when you're stressed or when you have disease in the body, especially when you have hormonal problems. So hormones are hugely interrelated to how your breath is, then automatically the breathing is severed. And when the breathing is severed, then automatically you're breathing more. Automatically you can't focus. Let's say I want to write a page. So instead of writing that page in 10 minutes, I'm going to take 4 hours. That is lost productivity,
Yeah.
for each of us who need to
And
work
if
and
you
earn
keep
money.
counting the number of hours that you're losing just because of that, and by the end of say few years you look at it, maybe the crucial years you've just lost to breath
Lost.
in a way
you
already.
you've only lost a breath. So
Yeah.
I only
Yeah.
tell people, you do breath work, forget everything else, do it for your focus. Do it so
Yeah.
you are so good at your work. in
And
the
if
in
focus
the
gets
yeah,
better, gradually all the other changes will
better.
start to happen automatically.
Better in my experience, I think, based on your prarabdh in life and what situation you're in, yes, it's going to derail, and yes, the
Yes.
breath, even if you have excellent focus today, tomorrow you may not have, depending on the situation you're in.
Yeah.
But if you build that muscle memory of breath work, which I think people like you and I have, then you'll
Mhm.
automatically go back to it the next
Yes.
day, and automatically all the organs will come back to normal.
Yeah.
The number one product of breath work is less inflammation in the body because of the carbonic acid.
And that is
And
the
that's
beginning of every disease in
disease.
the
So
body.
in Ashtanga
Yeah.
Hridayam, we begin with all disease is the root cause of all disease is inflammation, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is so much benefit to it. The other thing that I really believe everyone should look into now is Yoga Nidra. And Yoga Nidra, yes, is a very, it's a science that,
Anshul, if you don't
yeah,
mind, can I
yeah.
just cut you there because I'll move on to
Go
Yoga
ahead.
Nidra in a
Yeah, yeah,
sequential thing. But
right.
there is one question I think which is from a layman perspective I would want to know.
Yeah.
And this is again coming from my experience when I try telling people that get into breath work, okay?
Mm.
Generally, what they would ask me for is, do you have any link where we can practice on, it can be a self-paced practice, okay?
Yeah.
Now, since when it comes to live teaching or live led classes, I know it's powerful because it's not just about what you're doing, but
Yeah.
also the
So
environment
the
and the people with whom you're connecting. So it's
yeah.
kind of an environment.
Yeah.
But if the people who are doing by looking at some online link and
Video.
practicing it on their own, and let's assume that they're able to do whatever the video is teaching, so that kind of a breath that they come practice, how is it different from what a person would practice when a teacher is sitting there? I mean, because I
Because
want to really have a clear
yeah,
demarcation
because
why a
because
teacher is important.
honestly, I mean, the reason is we break it down to the fundamentals. Now, if you're going
Mhm.
to watch a video and do Kapalabhati but not know how to do Purna yogic breath or full yogic breathing, then you're not breathing right anyway. That Kapalabhati is only effective for you in that 1 minute. But after that,
Yeah.
you're going back to your bad breathing habits. But if you're with a teacher who's going to break down the structure of the breath to you, who's going to make you understand ki, put your hand on your diaphragm, put your hand on your chest. Do you understand right now when you're breathing in through the nose, the breath is only moving your chest?
So that
One
experience of step by
that
step how breath
that
goes in.
experience of a teacher guiding you through what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
or if you and I are sitting over there and I actually teach you how to breathe right with your shoulders drawn down so that your cranial nerves are not getting compressed and your pineal gland is getting activated, you're going to leave the class feeling so different as opposed
Yeah,
to
and
doing
that's
it
where
with
I
a
guess
video.
the boredom actually is being driven from
Yeah,
this perspective, where a
yeah,
lot of people are just trying
yeah,
to go by
right,
whatever is they see, and then they
yeah.
don't actually connect to what's
from
happening,
from
what's
a,
going on.
from a yogic perspective, yeah, we believe you must be initiated into a lineage, but I don't
Yeah.
think in the modern day world you're going to go so far into your advanced pranayama that you really need a lineage. And teachers like Dipti and I are always at a WhatsApp call. We are WhatsApping students all day about their problems. So I think one needs to come to, I feel like now all yogic knowledge needs to be communicated in a very modern way, because we are
Exactly.
having Americans doing it. Stanford is
Mm-hmm.
copywriting all of our knowledge and selling Yoga Nidra as NSDR, which is there on YouTube for all of us to have a look. So why not you and I, who are actually, guardians of this whole science, practice it, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like when you come to a class and I tell you, hey, this is the way your body is structured, and
Mm-hmm.
why don't you try this with me and see how you're feeling? And when you're doing your kumbhaka, or rather your retention, I'm guiding you on how to actually even unfold the creases of your forehead. Because for the most
Wow.
part, if you're doing it just by seeing a video, you're going to have all
Yeah.
the
And
creases on
then
your.
that's like sympathetic on, if I'm not wrong, right?
It will be, because
That's sympathetic.
the
Yeah.
more than anything, your fascia, which is behind your forehead, is going to start getting
Yeah, it will take a
crinkled,
shape
right?
there. Yeah. Take
Exactly.
shape there. Yeah.
So teachers have practiced for so long to understand that
Yeah.
what you're going to go through, right? So
Yeah.
that's the reason it's important, at least in the beginning, to get incubated into the practice organically, and then you
Yeah.
can take it as far as you want to, right? We
Right.
always guide the people that, okay, today I'm only making you do 40 exhalations, but on your own practice, you can go all the way up to 75, right?
Okay.
So we give you tools, and we give you a toolkit so you can take out that tool whenever you need it,
Yeah.
right? So we're actually making you
Which is
very
powerful, I
independent.
believe, because
Yeah,
considering the times today, you don't know when worry starts to happen to you. You don't know when
yeah,
anxiety starts to happen, when
yeah,
fears, phobias start to
yeah,
happen to you. And when
yeah,
you are in that situation, then you're completely gone, because then you don't know what
yeah,
is the solution. And
yeah,
then you get stuck in that vicious cycle of medication and all of that stuff. So if you have
yeah,
that toolkit, then you know, okay, the
yeah.
situation, what to do, and
You know,
immediately you are back to balance.
Dipti, my most powerful learning has been that, I've been teaching a lot of American and Australian students, like,
Mm-hmm.
people, and they lead such a different life than us. And,
Mm-hmm.
they told me, I didn't even know I was anxious. You helped me
Oh,
understand
wow.
that I'm anxious.
That
You know,
symptoms of
yeah,
anxiousness. Okay.
they told me, one student told me, I never understood that my entire childhood I was a nervous wreck.
Wow.
And I am now, she told me that when I go back to work and I'm staring at the computer, Achal, because you told me about the C3, C5, C6, I'm rolling
Now
my
they could
shoulders
relate to it.
down and I'm looking at the computer. I'm also blinking a lot more, and I'm taking
Yeah.
in deep breaths, and I can feel that when I leave the workplace at the end of the day, I'm not having a fight with my husband. We're so much
Mhm.
more calmer. So there have been, so many of these other intangible changes that have happened in people's lives that make somehow, like, even for me, I'm just a teacher, right? At the end of it,
Mhm.
have been amazing, because I also take it back nowadays.
Yeah,
Sometimes even
even you end up
you
learning
and
a
me
lot. I mean,
forget.
that's a practical experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so people like you and me who are like working on this every single day, even we forget, right? So nowadays,
Yeah.
even when I'm doing it, I'm like, wow, this is so powerful.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is now being used in hospitals. A lot
Hmm.
of this is now being used even in for trauma patients, and
Hmm.
it can help people to lose weight. It can help the
Exactly.
regular human being, but it's just that it's a practice that only when you experience it can you understand.
Yeah.
It
But whatever you just told me, that reminds me of my experience. Like when I switched from my IT job to, into wellness, that was about 10 years back. And when I was working as a, so the environment that I was working in was a very closed environment. Of course, all corporates have a closed environment, and
right.
artificial air
No
system being there.
oxygen.
Yeah, no oxygen. And I remember, and at that point in time, because I was completely I mean, I was not into this field, so I couldn't actually make a connect what's happening to me. Now I can definitely,
Yeah.
yes. So what used to happen was, on a daily basis, there was a specific pattern that used to happen to me. I used to reach office, say, by 9:30. Somewhere around 11 o'clock, it was a regular pattern every single day that I will start feeling dizzy for no reason. I mean, I'm working, and my
Wow.
concentration from 9:30 to 11 would be okay, but then somewhere around 10:30 this will start building up, and by 11 then I know that nothing is getting into my head. I mean, I have a lot of work to do, and nothing is getting into my head. I feel dizzy in my head, I feel there is some restriction in my breathing. It's not getting, even though I'm making my,
Wow.
posture straight, still the breath is not going in. And I used to feel so breathless, as if somebody is blocking my breath.
Yeah.
I had to take a break there, do another disaster, go and reach out for a cup of coffee and come back and, be on my system for some time, because coffee immediately will stimulate the nervous system.
Central nervous
Used to take
system.
me up, yeah. And by lunchtime, another havoc.
Oh my
Anxiety will
God.
be high, because
Yeah.
initially it was building up, and then I had coffee, and then by lunch it's already gone up. And then I
Yeah.
couldn't understand. Then I used to relate it to, okay, maybe I'm hungry because of it, I'm feeling all
Oh
those
God.
symptoms and in my gut. After having lunch, and it was lunch in a stressed state, because this SNS was already very high, and this
Yeah.
was a pattern every single day for,
Oh God.
believe me, for about 5 to 6 years continuously,
It's a
every single day, and I
severely
couldn't understand what's going on. And this was such a symptom that I couldn't even talk to this to any of the doctors. He would say, like, what are you talking about? I mean, what is this kind of pattern? It's okay, just take some deep breaths and it's okay. And when I decided to leave my job, this was one of the reasons, because I wasn't sure that it is breath, but I knew that somewhere it is impacting my health and it's going down. And then when I got into yoga and gradually all those concepts got clear, I realized how oxygen is so important for your brain. It was probably sitting thing, and of course, diaphragm not working properly, carbonic acid getting into my, getting accumulated, food's not digesting well, and ultimately, even if I'm trying to breathe hard, oxygen is not going in,
Yeah.
and having a direct impact on my mind. Then
Yeah.
that dizziness starts to happen, and so now I can actually see back and how the entire circle used to happen there. And
Yeah.
very, very important to
Yeah.
understand all of these concepts.
I think you and I can both say that yes, breathwork can heal every disease, but
Yes,
it needs to be performed the way it is meant to be done. Yeah.
exactly.
And
So
if
this
you're
is where my
doing, yeah,
next question is,
yeah,
before you move on. So, this is for the listeners. I would just want to announce that Anchal is doing a program with us under this Yavna initiative that we've taken at Swarasya, where it's going to be about 1.5 to 2 hours of a class, which is going to be a Yog Nidra class for 40 minutes. She'll actually take us through that experience. And in that particular single session, you can experience how different you feel, how relaxed you feel. And from there, it's not just about feeling how, at the health level, you start to feel energized. In that single session, after 30 minutes, you start to feel, and it's going to be about a little more, rather much more details about what she's trying to help us understand. So, Anshul, one question that I have, rather little confusion, like in the session, how can a person, not just from the understanding perspective, of course, we've built up some understanding about what you've told us, but how everything comes together and how a person understands and experiences everything in that 2 hours of session that you'll be taking for us?
So, for anyone who's, trying to come to this session, and I say that whoever is has this feeling of, a lack of ease in the body, always stressed. In Ayurveda, we say that if there is a disease that a doctor cannot diagnose, it's a disease of vata, okay? Excess air and ether in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going through something like that, where you have random pain, where you're stressed, your skin is inflamed, you have PCOS, you have thyroid, you have some cardiac issues, or you're not able to lose weight, then what's the downfall in experiencing this? Because according to Ayurveda, which is a very like perfect science, all disease that is cannot be diagnosed is diseases of the mind and diseases
Yeah.
of vata,
Nervous
which is
disorders. And physically, I guess it
exactly,
relates to nervous disorders.
yeah.
And the concept
And
joins back again there.
breath work is all about correcting the
Vata
nervous
imbalance.
system. Yeah. So I would say those people, right, who are questioning life, who are trying to figure things out, who are trying to make themselves better, why don't you come and experience this? Because in those 2 hours, I promise to you, you will experience something different. Yeah. Now I don't think I can actually tangibly tell you what is going to be different.
Yes, I understand, because it's
Yeah,
going to be different for
it's
each one of them. Yeah.
it's so different because we don't know what we are carrying, which baggage we need to
Yeah.
leave, which part of the body is screaming. We actually are not so aware of our own selves. So
Yeah.
I break it down to the level of what you are currently. I break it down to what you must be. I break it down to, a very simple example I'm telling you right now is that, let's say you're a right hander. So if you're a right-hander, you're most likely always using the left part of your brain. This is modern science talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the right part of the brain? And if you're not going to use it, then slowly it's going to become dull. And every
Yeah.
part of the brain is very significant. It has a very significant job. So you need to start using the left part
Anchal,
of
can
your
I
lung.
just cut
Yeah,
you there because I really want
yeah,
to talk about a practical
yeah,
example here,
yeah,
just joining the dots of how this
right.
manifests in life actually.
Yeah.
So I know a person who, in his earlier years, was a very was a very open kind of a person with a balance of logical mind and a creative mind. Okay,
Oh, nice.
and over years, because of situations, because of work pressure, because of the kind of people he was dealing with. I really want to focus on this aspect because
Yeah,
how your company matters, how
right.
the place of
Satsang.
work matters. So
Yeah,
for the kind of company that he was into, from the people perspective and from the organization perspective, that organization made him really rigid and made him think just on the
wow.
logical side because his work
Oh,
demanded that. And he was dealing with Americans, and Americans like more of logical mind than a creative mind. Okay.
yeah,
And then he, not by choice, but as a part of his job, he got into a thinking pattern which was always logical. And
wow.
gradually, so this is like one of my friend's husband. And
Yeah,
then now this girl, because she's quite open to me, she comes and tells that, initially this was the case. And now this person was a really different person in earlier years. And I really still relate to older him. I'm not able to relate to him right now. And
yeah,
one thing, if I look back, is that what I could see changed him was his career. I mean, the kind of people he was dealing with and
mm,
the kind of decisions he had to take, the kind of
yeah,
pressure he had. So, not by choice again, but by chance, he had to always think logical. And now,
yeah,
like we're talking about fascia, it was a similar kind of an impact where all those patterns have set. Okay. And now this
yeah.
person has actually forgotten himself how he was previously,
Wow.
which is creating a lot of problems in his married life now. I tried explaining this to my friend also. Now she understands, but this person doesn't understand because, it's
He needs to
one
do
side of the brain
alternate
has gotten
nostril
really active and
breathing.
the other one has gone. So what
Yeah,
I'm trying to focus upon here is this is how gradually you change as a person.
change. Totally, totally.
Yeah.
So when we have a breathing practice where we balance the sides of the brain, it's all about the brain actually in the breath work practice. So that, when you're breathing only from one nostril, which is actually what we tend to do in
And
modern
which
day
is also a
use.
sinus condition I want to talk about here because
Yeah.
hundreds of people have sinus and they don't realize how it changes their personality. It's not just about one
Even
disease, it's about
even
mind getting
asthma.
impacted.
Asthma can be
Yeah.
reversed through breath work.
Yeah.
The breath, when the nose is directly connected to the olfactory nerves in the brain. So when I'm teaching you Jalnaneti or I'm teaching you Dinacharya rituals, I'm cleaning up your olfactory nerves.
Yeah.
So this science is so strangely perfect, even though it was discovered, I don't know how many years back. And modern research is now actually looking at it so much more intently, is because it is life changing and life transforming. Yes, it doesn't come out in modern, in the pharmacy. It can't come out because
Yeah.
it's just not something that can be commercialized.
Yeah.
So there is such an impact it has on your digestive system, on your cardiac system, and even like diseases of the lungs, diseases of the livers, they can all be reversed if you do it every single day, not only one day. And more than anything, I think in this program, we're going to tie it up with Yoga Nidra, which is again a really, really important practice. I know yoga is well received, and most of us have done yoga. And yeah, we kind of have understood the benefits of it. But if you do these practices in tandem, so you do your pranayama and you do an asana practice and you do a nidra practice every single day, then I promise to you, in a month, you will be a different person. I
I
can I give
agree.
you a very interesting example, which
Yes.
Dr. Mukta told me from Cooper Hospital. She asked
Mm-hmm.
me where I learned Nidra from, and I told her I learned it from Bihar School of Yoga. So she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I have goosebumps on my hair. And I said, why do you have goosebumps on your hair? She's like, I met Abdul Kalam, and
Mm-hmm.
Abdul Kalam told us that his first satellite mission failed, and he was in depression. And
Okay.
then he met Swami Satyananda Saraswati from Bihar School of
Bihar school.
Yoga,
Okay.
and he taught him Yoga Nidra. So he did Yoga Nidra every single day, and then his satellite mission, he did it again. So, and it was a success. And the
And now I
entire
have
credit,
goosebumps.
and the entire
This is
credit that
amazing.
an
Yeah.
Abdul Kalam gave was Yoga Nidra. But I sometimes wonder, like, why is this not made public? Like, not many
Mm.
people know about this. I have personally used Nidra to get over so much trauma in my life. And I constantly tell people who have trauma in their life or have diseases or have low willpower or who have attention deficit disorder to use Nidra to come out of it. Because actually, when we sleep in the night, we're sleeping with tension because the
Yeah.
mind is still awake, the intellect is still awake, so it's still chattering.
Mhm.
We still have dreams. But when we're sleeping in yoga nidra, we're sleeping without the mind, without the intellect. There's a
Mhm.
brief portion where you will be guided, where you would not even know that you're in nidra, where none of your senses are going to be working. So all your jnana, like all the five senses, all the faculty that is reasoning is completely detached. So at that second, you will get complete rest in the body. What is fasting? Why is intermittent fasting such a fad? Because you're
Rest.
resting the digestion,
Yeah.
right? Which you
Anchal, I
guys are
have this
really not
question around
doing.
Yog Nidra. I just
Yeah,
want to cut you here.
go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
it's this is about 30 to 40 minutes of practice that we're talking about Yoga Nidra
Yeah,
that you'll be
it's a
guiding us through.
it's a 30-minute practice. You need to be in a
Hmm.
room alone and you just
Okay.
have to lie down. That's it. And listen to my
Okay.
instructions.
So, what
It's
is
a
the probability that a person might go off to sleep? Again, a very
it's
common
a
thing that
very
happens with a lot
high
of.
probability.
Yes.
The first time is a very high probability, but even that
Hmm.
is effective
Hmm.
because I'm, guiding you through a very relaxed sleep. Usually, when you go to sleep, you've just probably fought with someone, or you've watched
Hmm.
TV, or you've done something. So your subconscious is still on that, the chitta is still working towards that.
Hmm.
But when you're being guided to a very relaxed sleep, and if you really allow that to happen, then you fall into a state of deep rest. And when you're in deep rest, deep healing happens.
Yeah. So I just want to
So
add on here for the people who would really want to attend Anchal's upcoming session and who go off to sleep, we'll be giving you the recording. So don't worry
yeah,
about
we'll
that.
give
And
you
that's
the
why I wanted to
yeah,
bring about that,
yeah. So we'll give you the
session.
recording, and you should do it
Mm.
every single day after that, or how many ever days. And
Yeah.
Dipti, in fact, one of your clients, who's also
Hmm.
my a relative of mine, who I
Hmm.
sent to you, she
Hmm.
also bounced back. Remember, we had this
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
when
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when we
Yes.
when we give, like when I try healing people. I
Hmm.
tell them, I'll heal you, I'll give you what you
Hmm.
need, but after that, you need to start following it and
Yes. Yeah.
empowering yourself. But usually they slid off. So then I told her, come to me. I do Nidra for you every single day. And we did
Yeah.
Nidra for her every single day, and her anxiety sort of abated.
Yeah. I
She had
remember that.
so
I mean,
much,
she had
yeah,
amazing changes. Yes.
yeah.
I
So
guess the
it's
sinus and all those conditions were really
right.
reverted back.
So my point being that sometimes we don't understand that anxiety is causing gut inflammation,
Hmm.
IBS,
Hmm.
PCOS, thyroid. Everything is so interrelated. You can't think about the body as a single unit. There are
Yeah.
really amazing doctors now in the US who are actually saying that all the research done in isolation, let's say you have a doctor of a lung, right? He's
Hmm.
only doing research on the lung. It's useless
Yeah,
because
it's useless because
you're
your body's
seeing it
work.
in isolation. You have to
Your
see
body
it as
works
a
but
unit,
and
right?
it's energy which makes the difference. This is a missing piece of information, not just in um, from the yogic perspective, but also in the dietary perspective. And this is
Yeah,
what makes a holistic nutrition really different from modern nutrition,
yeah,
because
yeah.
then you see this energy is what is like. For example, I'll give you a very common example that I'm seeing, which is happening in the functional medicine field. A lot
Mm-hmm,
of supplements are being recommended. I mean, with all due respect to this modality, it's just amazing. The only
mm-hmm,
thing that I came across in this modality was that when you're working one compound out of a supplement, like for example, curcumin is a very highly used component in functional medicine for
right.
dealing with inflammation. Now, for that curcumin, because the quantity has to be really high, generally supplements are used. So that small capsule, one capsule of curcumin, for that much of curcumin, you might have to have say 5-6 teaspoons of
Black pepper.
haldi. Yes, like in a day to get just one capsule of. So what they're doing is they've cut down all that turmeric, and they're just giving you that curcumin supplement. But the problem is now the one of the Ayurveda pioneers that I was listening to in one of the podcasts, he specifically raised a question there that all these herbs are very powerful, but they are powerful when they are in synergy with its other compounds. When they are isolated and one compound you take out of it and you put it in the body, it is too much a load for the body. And it's like something like a concentrated protein or a concentrated carbohydrate. It will work the similar way. And initially you might see the positives, but if you don't do it mindfully, then the same thing that gave you relief in inflammation will start to build up too much of a heat in the body, and then you start to have heat kind of conditions.
Of course, too much
so it's
haldi
all
is
about
going to give you a
synergy.
pitta.
Yes.
Yeah. So and haldi needs black pepper for digestion, right? We need to. All I mean,
and I think some fatty component also is what.
Like a ghee, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, you and I both know that there's so much miscommunication. If Brahmari is the herb that is being published in the newspaper, everybody goes for Brahmari thinking it's good for me. But hey, which prakriti are you? Like, ashwagandha.
So what person you are, that makes it.
Yeah, it really depends. And more than anything for me, which I talk about a lot, is pranayama or breath work builds your intuitive capabilities. The reason being, we target your vagus nerve. So there is a nerve it's actually the mommy nerve of the central nervous system. It's the most important nerve that we have. So when that is stimulated, you are in such a state of rest, almost as if you were born, just without any tensions in the body. And if your pineal gland is active, which happens in very many yoga asanas, which happens in yoga nidra, which happens in breath work, then from a yogic perspective, we start permeating through our koshas. We start building intuition. We start understanding what really is right.
You start to get your own answers from within. I think I can, because this is what when I experienced as a part of my journey.
You won't need me to come and tell you that, hey, you need to have this or avoid this. Your body will signal, this is not good for me, and you'll even have the power to drop it. So this is probably an intangible yogic science that I'm speaking, but I'm just telling you because this has happened to me. So it all becomes, Ayurveda becomes so easy for people like us because it's just so easy
intuitive,
to understand.
Yes. And then heat, cool, and all those energies.
Exactly. So its food is then becomes secondary. Breath work becomes first. Food is secondary in terms of healing. The body, 70% of its needs are breath, oxygen. Food is a very small portion of it. Water and sunlight is far more important, right? And then is also that whole meditative aspect where
and it's so beautiful, no? Like initially when we started the session, we just mentioned how with a strong message a new baby enters. Focus on breath, then few months liquids, and then get on to solids. And it's as soon as the baby enters, you have that message in front of you. Your mantra for life.
Yeah, exactly. So these practices are a little difficult for modern day man to like sort of grasp,
relate to,
and it's also, hey, I'm going to gym every day, but who's going to be doing breath work every day, right? So it's not the most coolest of practices, but whoever has embraced it has taken it up for life, right? And it's also something that doesn't require an hour. It's only 20 minutes of your time, which is so easy to do, right? And it's revolutionary in terms of what you can become. So if there's something that's stopping you, if it was your dream, like I tell very many people, this whole willpower thing is so significant because as we age and as we grow through life, we don't understand that we sort of lose our goals, and we sort of we just become complacent ki nahi ho sakta, bacche hai,
rigidity starts to happen, and you become very stringent in your thought process.
Do you understand at the back end your prana is just becoming low? The brain is degenerating. It's not that
it's inflexibility of the mind, simple,
right? So we allow this practice can help with that, which is far more important, right? Because at the end of it, when you're not feeling achieved, or you're not working for your own self-worth, then you are not going to be happy. So come for happiness, if not anything. So so these are some of the benefits.
Great. So Anchal, I think we are short in time. I think we have a few questions also. I'll just quickly take one of the questions. So somebody is asking how to get rid of anxiety and depression through breath. And Will that kind
Yeah.
of an approach also be covered in the program that you'll be doing for
Yes,
us?
100%, 100%. So, depression depends on how far it is, but we've been speaking to so many doctors who are saying that this needs to become mandatory for people who are in depression. So, definitely, depression, anger can all be really, really sorted with breath work. It's just that with
But being
when
continuous with it.
yeah, with clinical
Yeah.
depression, you need someone back there to check that you're doing it because you don't have the willpower. It's like, to come back to it. It may take a significant time, but 100% it can. It just needs a sustained practice.
Yeah.
So we'll be
So
talking about
how
it.
I put it across is it's something like a bizarre signal going on. Sometimes the signal goes really high, sometimes it comes
Yeah,
really down,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
that's why you need an expert there to tell you, okay, your balance is not there or there. It's in the
right.
center, and how to get
Yeah,
onto it. So that's why I think
right.
expert intervention is important.
Yeah,
So I think Anshul, I think we'll be there for another 5 minutes. I'll just
yeah,
request
that's
for the
fine.
joinees to ask any questions if they have, and um, I think somebody's asking for details also. So if you really want to check the program that Anshul would be conducting, you could just go to my Instagram account, and it's mentioned in my link bio there. I think it's there at Anchal's account as well. Anchal, if it's not
Yeah,
there, maybe you can just put it
yeah,
there
I'll
if somebody
post
wants to
it.
check
I'll
it.
post it.
Yeah, so you'll get all details about what Anchal would be covering there. So there's a
Yeah.
landing page there. You can just click on it and check out. And I think we have one more question. What are the mandatory breath? What are the mandatory breath work on daily basis?
So, it differs depending on where you are, and we clearly tell you. We tell you that if you are someone with low energy, you need to do this. If you are someone who has high energy and more vata in the body, you need to do this. And if you're someone who is not able to concentrate, is doing a task and is getting distracted, then you need to do this. So it's important for you to come to the program and understand what to do. Like if I
So
tell
it's
you
a
right now,
protocol that, like,
it's a,
maybe you
yeah,
have
yeah,
specific tendencies, and for those specific tendencies, this is the
yeah.
structure for you. Does it work like
Yeah,
that?
so it's very individualistic, and we tell you that do this. Like I pick up 3 or 4 practices and I speak about those especially.
Hmm.
You can't tell someone, I can't tell you what I'm doing because you and I are very different, right? So
Yeah.
it's better
I
better
think,
one person
Anchal, I
comes
think
in.
I would want to talk about one example here, again, a real time example. And that is the reason now I have stopped giving general suggestions. So, with one of the clients, it happened like years back, since I was also learning and was into this practice mode. The BP of that person was really high. Okay.
Ah,
And then
mm-hmm,
this person really wanted to work on natural therapies to bring down the BP. And
mm-hmm.
because I was learning at that time, I got confused, which is the heating
Oh,
nostril, or just the cooling
mm-hmm.
nostril. And by
Yeah,
mistake, I made him did the heated
heating
one
one.
rather than the,
Oh,
and we did it for 4 5 days. Thankfully, so he did feel some, up and down at that point in time. But thankfully, I was under the guidance of my teacher, and then he
yeah,
guided me right. Okay, this is how. So these are small little things where even
yeah,
pranayam can take you negatively if you
yeah,
don't know how to incorporate it
yeah,
well. And I guess that's
yeah.
important. That it
And
is
we
important.
even
Where do you
talk about,
stand?
yeah, we also talk about if it's really hot outside and you're
Yeah.
feeling very
How you?
angry, then do this practice, right? Like do shitali, sheet curry. So we
Hmm.
need to like organically get into it. You can't
Yeah.
say that, one size fits all. And
Yeah.
there is
But Anshul, is there
any
any
yeah.
specific pranayam that somebody wants to
I
just
think instead
experientially
of
want to start and see?
I think instead of calling it pranayama, I'd say everybody should experience deep
Deep breathe.
yogic breathing. Yeah, you
Yeah.
should really understand what it is because we don't use our diaphragm. And if you don't
Yeah.
use your diaphragm, then the pineal, all of us who are facing this problem of being very externally stimulated ultimately lies in the fact that we're not connected intuitively, right? So, Purna yogic breathing itself can get us to like the destination. So, I would say you can begin with that.
Great. So, any other question from anyone? I think we've taken up all the questions. I'll just check that. Any Anshul, on the ending note, anything from your end that you would want to add on?
Um, uh, now all I want to say to everyone here is that sometimes we don't know what's going on, what's upsetting us, or why certain things are hampering our growth. There's stagnation in the body. Um, it's hard to pinpoint. No one can help you. You have to help yourself. all right?
Exactly.
That is something we all have learned. No one can help you. Even taking a medicine, you have to do it on your own. So you need to experience this to understand how you can help yourself, right? I can't tell you, and I can't even tell you what problem you have, and maybe you're not even aware of it. So let's say it's weight loss, or let's say it's diabetes, or anything. This is like a preliminary answer for you. Yeah. For students, anything for focus, yeah, I mean, there's breath retention, which is great, but understand how it's done because it's usually done after some activity. You can't just go into breath retention because when your body is full of agitations and you go to breath retention, you're just going to make yourself negative.
Crazy,
Yeah.
yeah.
How to breathe while we are in anxiety or sad. So when you're in anxiety or you're sad, you're going to notice that your breath is harbored. You're going to be breathing from your chest, and you're also going to be breathing heavily. The body is also going to start becoming hot. So I think at that point you have to engage the diaphragm and really travel
Ease
your
out the
breath
body, I guess,
into,
lose
yeah,
everything because
and
everything gets tightened. The first thing is just
yeah,
loosen out.
yeah. So you need to exhale slowly and really focus on breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose, engaging the abdomen like a balloon, and make the exhalation much, 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 much longer than the inhalation.
Anchal,
How
I
to,
think I would want to add on here before we move
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Very important, and this is again from practical experience coming in. For the people who have this anxiety issue or any kind of emotional issue that happens randomly, okay, they try to breathe in. They also are able to loosen out their bodies till they're not able to breathe in, and a lot to do with the tight clothing that we wear. I mean, I really want to
all
pick that
right,
point because nobody talks
yeah.
about it. Nobody focuses on
Underwear
that. So,
especially,
yes.
it has to be
So very
cotton.
important to
Yeah,
have those loose
yeah,
clothing specifically in your mid area if
yeah.
you really want to breathe openly and freely.
Yeah. I agree. So we talk about all the eye exercises and everything in the program, which now is being used by elite athletes. Elite athletes in Canada and America are extensively being trained in breath work. And I found that so amazing when I learned
Yeah.
that. So come experience it. I think, if not anything, it's a way to perpetuate your self-growth.
Yeah. Great. So, Anchal, I think we're already, gone up
Yeah, we've
the time.
gone
Yeah.
in.
So,
Yeah.
for the ones who are interested in the program, feel free to reach out to me or Anchal, or you can also look out at the program details on our link bio. It's available there. And yeah, we hope to have you there and experience this amazing practice, which is where everything begins from. Like, foods, exercise, lifestyle will come later. The very first thing is breath. Learn to
Yeah.
breathe right. Yeah.
I agree
Okay,
with
great.
you, Dipti. All
Yeah.
right. Hari
Okay,
Om.
thank you,
Thank
Anshul.
you.
Thank you so much for being
Bye.
here. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah.